Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today, I thought we'd do another mixed haul. I got some stuff, not a huge amount, so this should go pretty quick compared to some of my other ones. I just need to clear off my shop because I got some work I need to do, clear off my desk because I got some work I need to do. So, thought I'd do this. All right, so let's get through it pretty quickly. All right, so I'll do some books that I've done before. So, we have Ernest Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls, one of Hemingway's greatest works. I spoke about this in previous videos, so I'm not going to talk about it now. Then we have Elias Grace by Margaret Atwood. My argument is Margaret Atwood is the greatest Canadian author of all time. Other people can argue other things. Some people might say Mordecai Richler. Others might say Hugh McLennan, Margaret Lawrence. There's a bunch of really great Canadian writers, Alice Munro. But I think she's the best. And although this isn't her best work, her best is The Handmaid's Tale or perhaps Surfacing or The Edible Woman. But this one is an extremely good book as well if you haven't read it. It's about Elias Grace, who's uh, um, Grace Marks is the name of the main character. She's accused of murdering. She's like a maid, and she's accused of help murdering her employer and his mistress. And it goes through all that and whether she doesn't remember it, and the psychologist gets involved to try to make her remember. And anyways, it gets pretty complicated. It won the Giller, which is English language, one of the great Canadian prizes for in Canada. You have the Giller and the Governor General's awards, right? So I think she's pretty much won all the awards you can think of. All right, so that's that. And I got 3 books from the Arcturus collection. These ones that I sell for $30. We have This Side of Paradise, probably F. Scott Fitzgerald, one of his great books. All right. I'm not going to get into that one. The Picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde's only a novel, right? About a man who makes a pact with the devil that turns a portrait of his on the wall. It ages and he doesn't. Then we have Virginia Woolf's Orlando. So these are 3 in our tourist collection. These are fun to collect, actually. They've gotten to the point now where they have enough of them that they're fun to collect, and they're all really brightly colored, and they really look nice on a shelf. Um, the problem is that they will brown pretty quickly, so you may want to put them in plastic to protect them to make them continue looking good on your shelf. Then I found this Franklin Library um, leather-bound edition of Guy de Maupassant's work. All right, so it's just all of his stories, right? And this doesn't look like your regular Franklin Library because it's part of a sub-library within the Franklin Library, which is called The Collected Stories of the World's Greatest Writers. So it's a bunch of short stories. It's a short story collection of a bunch of books and they all have this kind of design on the front. They're all leather-bound edition, nice edition. So I found this for like $4, and so I decided I'd pick it up. Um, Guy de Maupassant is, one of the great French writers, and these are all of his short stories. All right, so that's that. What else we got? Okay, we got Hunter S. Thompson's best work, which is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, turned into a movie. Uh, yeah, so starring. Anyways, it's basically a guy who's a pseudo journalist who gets high on every type of drug you can think of and writes while doing it. And it comes up with some pretty profound things and some other mundane things, but overall his writing is quite entertaining. If you haven't read it. They got Carl Sagan, one of the great scientists of the world, well, scientific authors, and this one is called The Demon-Hulled World: Science as a Candle in the Dark, right? So um, how can we make intelligent decisions about our increasingly technology-driven lives if we don't understand the difference between the myths of pseudoscience, New Age thinking, and fundamentalist zealotry and the testable hypothesis of science. So he basically, was arguing that science is the light and the darkness of all hell. You know what I mean? All these zealots and fundamentalists around that will suck you in. And where does science? Science is like the bastion of hope, right? So, anyway, Sagan's always been a great writer. What else do we have here? Uh, The Secret World, A History of Intelligence. I have not read this book, but um, The History of Intelligence. Come on, you got to read that. Captivating, insightful, and masterly, according to Edward Lucas. Anyways, it's a history of thought, right? All right. So we got the No Fear Shakespeare of Othello, one of Shakespeare's great tragedies, and the No Fear Shakespeare. Now, these are pretty cheap. They're usually like $6 or $7 new, and you get the play. And on one side of the play, you get the actual play itself, and then on the other side of the same page, you get the modern English translation of it. So you can actually, that's why they call it No Fear Shakespeare. So you can read Shakespeare without fearing whether you'll understand it or not, because you'll have the dual original language and then the updated English for that play. So um, these are very popular, and most of his plays are done in No Fear Shakespeare's. What else we got? We got the Everyman Library, sorry, the modern library version of Persuasion, Jane Austen's last novel. I haven't read it. All right. Then we got, this was in such nice condition, and then I'm walking to the front of the store, and the books fall out of my hand. It goes crack down, and it damages the corner of the book, right? Anyways, this is R.K. Narayan's Malgudi Days. I don't know anything about this book, so we have another modern library edition paperback of Jack London's Call of the Wild, which was one of the funnest books that I've ever read when I was a kid. Um, about the Yukon, the North, the Klondike, and about a dog, right? And one of Faulkner's great novels, As I Lay Dying. I read his The Sound and the Fury, and then I stopped reading him because I don't. His writing didn't appeal to me, so I haven't read As I Lay Dying. Then we got two books by Robert Heilbroner. All right, we got The Worldly Philosophers and Teachings from the Worldly Philosophers. Basically, start. He always puts philosophy on it, but mostly this is economics. This is economic philosophy, how money works, how an economy works, and all that. And he's an extremely good writer when it comes to it. And if you haven't picked up any of Heilbroner's stuff, you should, because he's a smart guy. And then I found um, two philosophy books from Hackett. We have Aristotle on poetry and style, and George Berkeley on a treatise concerning the principles of human knowledge. These ones are really good to pick up. All the Hackett publishing, they have most of the great um, philosophical works. All right, we haven't read those. And what else do we have here? We have The Pilgrim's Progress, one of the great Christian books, the allegory about the man who leaves, his hometown, which is basically the earth, and he travels to paradise, basically to heaven. He's on a trip, and he meets all these different characters along the way. Try to persuade him, tell him to turn back. Others try to bring him off into different tangents away from his journey. And what characters would they? I think I wrote some of the characters. So he ends up help is one person that he ends up meeting. Another is the evangelist. Another is obstinate. Another is pliable. Another is Mr. Legality, civility, and a worldly wise man. These are different characters that he ends up coming in. But basically, it's an allegory of his progress from this world to the next, right? And his journey, and how what type of path a Christian should take in order to get into heaven, basically, is what this is. And it's an extremely good book, read by millions of people. Uh, it, it's one of the greats in Christian literature. All right. Next up is Helter Skelter, my argument for the greatest true crime book of all time. I mean, you got In the Garden of Good and Evil. What was that? What's that book? In the Garden of Good and Evil. That one was pretty good as well, and so was In Cold Blood, Truman Capote's book. But this one I think is the greatest of all time. It's basically written by Victor Bugliosi with Kurt Gentry. Victor Bugliosi is the guy that prosecuted the Manson and the Manson family for the murders of Sharon Tate and the Folgers and all that, right? That murder spree that Manson's disciples went on in the Hollywood Hills. Um, it's an extremely good read with pictures and everything else. And basically, Charles Manson is part of American culture. You'll see him, especially after he has that swastika that he carved into his forehead, right? But basically, it goes through his story and the story of the Manson murders, and it's an extremely very good read if you haven't read it. All right, what else do we have? We have Dune, Frank Herbert's great novel, one of the greatest science fiction novels of all time. That you know, there's a series of I think 6 novels altogether, but this is the first one, and it's the best out of all of them. They're basically about the spice and how spice is worth money in this world, and how there's a planet that makes this spice, and how different powers in the galaxy are trying to gain control of it, and you end up a lot of it takes place on the planet where the spice is, and you have these monsters that travel through sand like it's basically a desert planet travel through sand like they're fish or whatever, right? So, but they're more like big snakes or whatever. Anyway, so um, it's an extremely good novel. I read it. I didn't continue reading the Dune series. I just read the first one. So, and then we have my favorite fantasy writer, and that's Stephen R. Donaldson. And you have the Mordant Needs 2 books. A Man Rides Through in the Mirror of Her Dreams. He's most famous, Stephen R. Donaldson, that is, for the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, Unbeliever. There's like 3 chronicles of it, and then there's a final book or something. Anyways, I read the first 2 chronicles. The first Chronicles of Thomas Covenant was great. The second one was really good as well, and these ones are really good as well. This is basically a story about a woman who lives in an apartment alone. She's kind of on the crest of losing her mind, basically, because she's not sure if she's real or not. Because when she goes out into the world, nobody notices her. She doesn't have any friends. Nobody really talks to her much. So she's kind of losing her ability to believe that she actually exists. So what she does in her apartment is cover all the walls with mirrors, so that no matter where she is in her apartment, she looks and she can see herself. So that way, psychologically, she's not losing herself into oblivion because she doesn't think she exists. The problem is that when she put all these mirrors up, it opened up a portal to a different world, and a person comes through it, thinks that she's a great magician, and grabs her and brings her through the mirror into this alternate universe, this alternate world where you have magic and that kind of thing. And the most powerful of all magicians are these magicians that use mirrors. They form them out of sand, and they can create portals to different places, and that kind of thing is a very powerful ability in this world, right? So it took him 2 books rather than 3 books to get through the whole story. But if you haven't read this and you really like fantasy novels, you should read Stephen R. Donaldson. He's one of the greats. What else do we have here? Um, okay, the last book. Save the last book, the best book for last. All right, so look at this. This is Plato's The Collected Dialogues. All right, so this is put out by Princeton University. And Princeton University has a series that they've had for the last, I don't know, like 30 or 40 years. It's called the Bollinger series. They all have that symbol on them, and they're all great works in philosophy and that kind of thing. It's called the Bollinger series. I don't know how many volumes in it there are, but when I was up to my up to my knees in reading philosophy when I was in my 20s and 30s. Um, this is where I went to get Plato's works, all right? This book here, particularly. And Aristotle also has its complete works of Aristotle in 2 volumes in the Bollinger series. Instead of having like this brownish gray cover, it has a blue cover. So those are this is the this is this is the definitive book that you want. If you're wanting to read Plato, this is the book that you want. All right. Same with Aristotle, except they're blue. I'll show a picture of them up here or wherever. You'll see it anyways. But it's part of the Bollinger series put out by Princeton University, and there's a whole bunch of really, the I Ching is in it, and other works are in the Bollinger series. Um, but the main 2 things that people buy in that series is Plato's his collected dialogues and Aristotle's complete works in 2 volumes, right? So, um, but look, this is like $100 book, all right, and it's it's leather. It's a leather bound book, right? All right, it's really nice. They did a really job. Paper is exceptionally good as well. And this guy puts it on his shelf and wrecks it. So it's directly in sunlight. So if you know, I don't know if you can see the difference, but if I slowly turn it, do you see the difference? How it's lighter on the spine because he had it on a shelf and where sunlight was hitting it, so it's discolored it, and he's not taking care of it. See the rip in it? There's a rip here. All right, so you're just pushing it around haphazardly on a shelf, and it gets its sunlight, and it's one of the great books. You should take care of the books that you have, right? Because I've ranted about this before. You're not really an owner of your books. You're more of a custodian, right? So the guy who bought this probably bought it new, paid like maybe $100 for it, um, and then he goes about not taking care of it at all, and then it ends up in a thrift shop somewhere because he's getting rid of his books, I guess, and it ends up in my possession, and now I'm going to take care of it, right? So I'll put a plastic mylar cover over the dust jacket to protect it, and I will have Plato's basically his complete works in 1 volume. It's all of his dialogues basically. So this is the Bollingen series, not Bollinger. I always want to call. So it's a Bollingen series. This is a what number is L in Greek? L is 50. Is it 50 or 100? I think it's 50, isn't it? So it's LXX1, which means it is. See how stupid I make myself, ignorant intellectual, right? So LXS1 would be what, 70, 71, volume 71. Anyways, very beautiful edition, and the guy just kind of wrecks it, right? So, but even in this condition, it's not bad, at least. And now we'll do some movies and all right. So I ordered this from Amazon. It's King of Hearts, a film by Philip de Broca. All right, and it's number 192 in the Masters of Cinema series. Um, so and it was under $20, so I picked it up. The problem is I already had it, and I didn't realize it because that, like, I have a listing of all of my collections on my phone, except I bought this and I haven't added it to the list on my phone yet, and so then a couple of months pass, I haven't watched the movie yet, right? So then I'm looking on Amazon and I see this at a really good price, so I ordered it again, not realizing that I already had it, right? So, but anyways, it's basically about him. He's what is he? He ends up in a mental institution, right? And he's like a bomb diffuser, and he has to go into a city in in France to go defuse a bomb, but he ends up in a mental institution instead, right? So, anyways, it's supposed to be a pretty good. I haven't seen it yet. It's supposed to be a pretty good movie, though. If it's part of the Master of Cinema series, there's some merit to it, obviously, right? So I'll watch it and I'll see what it is and I'll review it in a later book. And then I ended up finding this for $4. That's Spinal Tap, Rob Reiner's great mockumentary or rockumentary or whatever. It's basically like a fictional documentary on a super great band that obviously in real life doesn't exist, right? But it's like a parody. It's like it pokes fun at all the trappings of being a rock star, right? It's extremely good, and everybody who's ever watched this film, especially rock fans, will really enjoy this film. If you haven't, it's probably I don't know. Reiner has made some really good films, but this one is up there with if it isn't his best, it's one of his top five films, right? Um, so I had this on DVD, but I didn't have it on Blu-ray. So now I have it on Blu-ray. This is Spinal Tap. All right. Then I found two Disney films. I found Bambi and The Little Mermaid. All right. So both in Blu-ray. Uh, whatever controversy Disney is involved in the last few years, their classic films are great for you and the kids to watch together. Bambi's kind of sad because he loses his mother. Um, Little Mermaid, she wants to end up marrying a prince and being a human. So it's a Hans Christian Andersen. I don't know who did Bambi, but Hans Christian Andersen did this one, didn't he? Or was it the Brothers Grimm? Anyway, so two of Disney's great animated films. And last but not least, I went to a record shop where my son does judo, and I found Experts, the 1977 recordings of X. Now, there are two there are two great bands with the name X. One's from Australia, which is this one, and the other one's from LA, from the United States, from Los Angeles. They're both kind of punk rock bands, and I couldn't find hardly anything by either of the bands. So when I went into the record store and I found this one, I said, "Great, I'm going to pick it up, um, see how because these guys are well respected and one of the great punk rock bands that ever came out of Australia, right? So let's see how they are, see how good they are. So I'll listen to this and see how it is and review it in a future video. But basically, this stuff isn't easy to find. So when I found this, and it was only $25, so that's not too bad. Kind of blew a bit of my money, but what ex Australian band? Because I just picked up another Australian band, right? I'm I'm starting to find. I think maybe somebody in my city has gotten rid of his record collection and a lot of the records. Maybe he was Australian or he was a fan of Australian music because they seem to be popping up more. Whenever I go out, I see Australian music more. So, all right. And that's everything. So I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, leave me a thumbs up. Think about subscribing and you have a great day. And I'll talk to you in my next video. Hopefully my voice will be better by then. And bye for now.